I'm not coming out of the closet. I'm just getting out of the box. Why did I do that ridiculous thing? Why did I come out of the box? Because I don't like to be placed in a box. But you as wannabe entrepreneur need to know who you are. If I ask you now, who are you? Can you give me an answer? Now, in order to determine who you are, you need to consider a couple of things. You need to go and sit down, away from everything, away from everyone, in a quiet place. This can be in your office in the middle of the night. It can be there on the beach. It can be in a forest. It can be in your garden. And you need to take a pen and a notebook with you. And to keep it simple, we're going to only answer 2 questions. You need to just answer 2 questions. Make 2 lists, and that's a good starting point. And the other thing is, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. On your piece of paper, or on 2 pages, write these 2 headings. My strengths, on the 1 page, or the 1 column, and on the other one, my weaknesses. Now, we all have strengths and weaknesses. One of my weaknesses is that I'm an introvert. I enjoy the company of other people, but I will not be the clown of the party. And I love those people. I love the clowns. I love people that can make other people laugh. But I'm not like that. So on the 1 page, list all your weaknesses. And on the other page, list all your strengths. Now, you don't have to start with your best strength or your worst weakness. But maybe that's a good start. What am I most afraid of? And list that as a weakness. Or on your strengths, ask yourself, what gives me drive? Do I have drive? Maybe being driven is one of your strengths. Or maybe it's one of your weaknesses. Make those 2 lists. And then maybe if you want to, you can prioritize them. Maybe everyone a number from 1 to 10 and list them. And if you are as lazy as I am, go onto the internet. I'm sure Professor Google will give you a list of all the weaknesses and all the strengths that people possess. And maybe you can just go through those lists and rank yourself. Maybe some of the stuff is not even applicable on you. Now, another thing that you can do is to look for an online personality test. I had the privilege yesterday that a lady came to our men's group and she explained the Enneagram to us. Now, basically what this test does is it asks you a couple of questions. And again, when you're honest with yourself, it gives you a number, or from 1 to 9, and those numbers basically explains your personality type. Now, it's important for you wannabe entrepreneurs to understand how you were created, because we're all unique, and that's why different people with different strengths and different weaknesses complement each other. Now, I'm too dumb and dumber to explain the Enneagram to you. That's now the first time I've actually done this test, and just by her explanation of the different numbers and the different personalities, I could relate to some of these numbers. Now, obviously, there is one category where you fit in, which basically encapsulates your personality. Now, these tests are not 100% accurate, but they've been designed over decades, and they've helped a lot of people to understand their relationship with others. And if you get a glimpse in your personality type, and you also recognize someone else's personality type, it can help you in many ways. For instance, conflict resolution or problem solving. Because you may be in a situation as a wannabe entrepreneur and there's a tug of war between two personalities. And each personality wants to force their views onto the other person. So sometimes it's helpful if you can understand the other person's characteristics, if you can, in your head, if you understand the Enneagram, if you can put a number to them. Because after doing this test, you'll know what your number is. Now, and if you've got time, you must go and study these different personality types and also understand how you can work with these different people. People not always see eye to eye. But the thing is, if you hard-ass as what I am, I want to force my views on other people. And it's happened in the past that I've done this and they just had to accept it. Because at some stage in my life I had the attitude of FIFO. Fit in or freak off. So if you couldn't fit in, I would have driven you out of my business. But that is not always the solution to your problems. And also there's a lot of positives in understanding where people fit, how their personalities fit. And also as your business grows, you're going to need certain personality types in different areas of your business. You can't have an introvert as a sales manager. You cannot have a bully as your personnel manager. You cannot have someone that cannot control conflict in your after-sales service. Because these people have got certain functionalities within your business, and if their personality type does not fit in that box that you prescribe for that position, it's going to cause a lot of hassles and maybe even lose your customers. So it is maybe a very good exercise, number one, for yourself at this stage, even before you start on your entrepreneurial journey, is to go and to do these tests. And you get a lot of these tests and it's free on the internet, and you go and you answer those questions honestly and you see what the results are. But maybe you've got in your mind a certain personality, a certain personality type, but then you do the test and it shows you something completely different. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, but maybe it is you've been fooling yourself your whole life, that you thought you were this type of person, but these tests tell you you're on the opposite side or slightly left of that. So do yourself the favor, I'm going to put a link and have fun with it.
The Enneagram. Now, according to Enneagram theory, our personalities began as coping strategies we developed as children to feel safe and secure in the face of trauma and stress. So one way to think of it would be to see our personalities as armor we grew to protect ourselves from threats we perceived in our childhood environments. Only we still wear that armor today, which can dictate how we react to stress and conflict, and even how we interact with each other. While this may have helped us get through our childhoods, it could be the source of even more pain and conflict as we continue to suppress our true selves as adults. It's pretty depressing. This is what makes the Enneagram different from other personality typing systems. It doesn't focus on whether or not a type is extroverted, intellectual, or creative, though it does claim that certain personalities are more prone to those behaviors than others. The Enneagram is more concerned with what drives those behaviors than with the behaviors themselves. Needless to say, the Enneagram's a lot more complex, but this got me thinking. What are the Enneagram types of characters in film? Would knowing their types help me understand the characters more and see them in a new light? Do their motivations, strengths, fears, and weaknesses match up with those of the 9 types? But before I can show you everything that I found in this huge project and how the Enneagram works, I first need to make some things clear. First, the Enneagram is not scientifically driven nor based in clinical psychology. However, it has proven itself to be very accurate and useful in therapy and personal development for many people, including myself. Think of it more as a neat tool for personal growth rather than the end-all be-all scientific model of human psychology and all of its mysteries, because it's not that, nor was it even made with that intention. It's just a very helpful visualization for how personalities work that has made an undeniable positive impact on many people's lives. And as it has been the case for many others, it's helped me come to some profound realizations about myself, as well as help me heal some childhood wounds I never came to terms with. The second and final clarification I want to make is that just because I use a villain as an example of what a type looks like when unhealthy doesn't mean that you or anyone else who is also that type is as morally depraved and evil like that character. I'm simply saying that that character matches the description for that type when extremely psychologically unhealthy. I'm not trying to label or limit anyone to being a villain from a summer blockbuster because that would be stupid. I'm just exploring the Enneagram through fictional characters to see how they exhibit the traits, fears, and motivations of their types. Alrighty, now with that out of the way, so what does this symbol mean? Well, you'll notice that there are 9 corners or points, each representing a different personality type. Starting with type 1s, we have the reformers. Type 1s greatly value integrity and have a strong passion for the fulfillment of their ideals and the pursuit of high standards.
I could do this all day.
Ones can feel like there is something inherently wrong with either themselves or with the world around them, so they strive to satisfy their internal critic by restraining their instincts, being good, and doing things correctly. However, this can be done in perfectionistic ways, making them seem critical and judgmental to others.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Type 2s, the helpers, tend to be incredibly caring, generous, and hardworking in the service of others, with a focus on relationships and gaining approval.
100 tickets. I'm not gonna write 100 tickets. I'm gonna write 200 tickets.
However, they can use their helpfulness as a strategy to get their needs met as they continue to repress feelings that they're in conflict with. This can lead to them becoming so self-sacrificial that they forget to take care of themselves.
I do this time after time after time. I do all this shit for other people. And then I wake up and I'm empty. I have nothing.
Type 3s, the achievers, fear being worthless, so they pursue achievement and recognition with a strong competitive drive to feel valuable, cementing themselves as hard workers and social chameleons.
A man can change his stars. And I won't spend the rest of my life as nothing.
However, over-identifying themselves with what they do and creating an image of success in the eyes of others causes 3s to lose touch with their feelings, who they really are, and what actually matters to them, leaving them feeling empty.
I think I have this thing where I need everybody to think I'm the greatest. And if they aren't completely knocked out and dazzled and kind of intimidated by me, then I don't feel good about myself.
Type 4s, the individualists, are said to be the most introspective and emotionally intuitive of the 9 types and often focus their attention on their own feelings, the feelings of others, and authentic self-expression. However, they also feel as though there's something missing in their lives, something that they see as somehow unavailable but ideal, which can lead to them over-identifying with their negative feelings and dwell in melancholy.
Il est brisé. Plus que brisé, il est seul.
Type 5s, the investigators, are analytical, curious, and spend a lot of time collecting knowledge and information as a way to conquer their fear and feel safe in a world full of unknowns, all while maintaining an emotional distance from others.
The Book of the Invisible Sun, Codex Imperium, Key of Solomon. You finished all of this?
Yep.
5s greatly value autonomy and self-sufficiency and fear being incompetent and having emotional demands placed on them, causing them to detach from their feelings and over-identify with their thinking.
I need to do something to take my mind off her. Easy enough, except I need an idea.
Type 6s, the loyalists, are said to be the most fearful type on the Enneagram, resulting in 3 different ways 6s may react to their fear. The more phobic 6s escape their fear by making close connections with others, other 6s cope with their fear by following authorities and ideologies, and more counterphobic 6s escape their fear by being strong and intimidating.
It's me, Will. Remember we went to kindergarten together?
But no matter the subtype, 6s are alert and watchful and focus on detecting threats in their environment. However, their strong sense of fear can make it hard for them to trust their own thoughts, causing them to sometimes come across as anxious and paranoid.
You feel a break? Sometimes you can't tell because fluid is rushing into the area. Now, any rushing fluids? Are you woozy? How many stripes do I have?
Type 7s, the enthusiasts, are fun, spontaneous, and quick-witted, often avoiding unpleasant feelings by focusing on what's pleasurable by keeping the mood upbeat and enjoyable.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
However, they can do this to escape the pain and anxiety that boredom brings them. While their fear of being trapped can fuel positive quick thinking, it can also cause them to act out in self-indulgent and excessive ways in their search for pleasure and happiness.
We want to be free to do what we want to do! Yeah! We want to get loaded! Yeah! And we want to have a good time!
Type 8s, the challengers, are confident, assertive, and fiercely independent, expressing a need to be strong and go against power as they focus their attention on control, all while being fearlessly willing to confront others and protect those they care about.
Get away from her, you bitch!
However, their impulsive tendency to take what they want can also lead to them becoming domineering, aggressive, and unwilling to experience vulnerable feelings.
You're an asshole.
Sue me.
And finally, Type 9s, the peacekeepers, are easygoing, laid back, and like to go with the flow as they focus their attention on others, their environment, avoiding conflict, and achieving peace and harmony.
Oh, we gotta hug her.
But this can be because they lack a clear sense of themselves and deeply fear conflict, meaning they repress their own desires and replace them with the agendas of others just to keep the peace, causing them to grow increasingly frustrated for not going after what they really want in life.
Am I not supposed to have what I want? What I need?
Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't grouping every complex human individual into only one of 9 personality types extremely limiting and overly simplistic?
You think. You be in a box and try and close it. Make a special effect. This fucking box off me. I must get this box off me.
The Enneagram of personality is a system used by numerous mental health professionals to get more insight into one's character and as a method for self-development. The Enneagram consists of 9 personality archetypes that are interconnected in different ways. Some say that the Enneagram is liberating compared to the conventional methodology of mental health disorders because none of the archetypes are inferior or defective in themselves. Nevertheless, as it focuses as much on negative traits as on positive traits, it isn't an ego-flattering tool either. The Enneagram leaves room for overlap between and within different personality types. Also, it acknowledges that nobody is purely one type, but rather a basic type that transforms within its own range of characteristics and also corresponds with types that it's connected to. This video is an introduction to the Enneagram of personality. There's no consensus on the exact origins of the Enneagram, but it's certain that the use and meaning of it have changed throughout the centuries, as there are different interpretations and usages by different people from several time periods. The Enneagram symbol appears in the Islamic Sufi tradition, and variations of it are found in the sacred geometry of the Pythagoreans. Some believe that Jewish Neoplatonist philosopher Philo brought the Enneagram into esoteric Judaism and was later represented in the Kabbalistic ninefold symbol, the Tree of Life. The Enneagram, as we know it today, is based on the teachings of the Bolivian psycho-spiritual teacher Oscar Ichazo and the Chilean psychiatrist Claudio Naranjo. Naranjo was influenced by Russian mystic George Gurdjieff, who made the Enneagram figure publicly known and has possibly retrieved it from a Sufi monastery in Afghanistan at the end of the 19th century. The word Enneagram is derived from the Greek words Ennea and Grammos. Ennea means 9 and Grammos means something that is drawn or written. Unsurprisingly, the Enneagram of personality contains 9 different nodes. Each node refers to one archetype. The way in which the Enneagram is set up already shows the equivalence between the archetypes. None of the nodes is in a preferable position, as they are all part of the same circle. The numbers attributed to the nodes solely function as a way to identify the archetypes, but are in no way a rating system, meaning that a 7 isn't better than a 2. Of course, there are differences in traits, but every type has positive as well as negative traits, which are all significant in their own ways. The level of appreciation for each personality type depends on personal and cultural preferences. And there's empirical evidence that the archetypes play a significant role when it comes to mate selection. The Enneagram also distinguishes the 9 archetypes through the manner in which they are interconnected. For example, they can be divided into 3 groups, meaning that these groups consist of personalities that share similar characteristics. Another example is that every type is connected to at least one type from another group. This signifies the potential of developing characteristics that don't typically manifest in one's personality type, but are present nonetheless, be it in healthy or unhealthy ways. Later on in the video, we'll explore this a bit further. So what archetypes does the Enneagram present? In this section of the video, we'll briefly explore the characteristics of each archetype. These short descriptions are not complete, but they give a concise insight into each type. The first one is the perfectionist. A perfectionist wants to be right. they are driven to realize their ideal images, and with that, they want to change the world as it is into something better. They worship perfection and are therefore burdened with the fear of imperfection, and can become quite angry when things aren't the way they're supposed to be. Norms and values are very important to them, and they can be quite fault-finding because of this. Perfectionists are characterized by honesty, reliability, productivity, orderliness, and discipline. But they can also be judgmental, rigid, over-fussy, dominant, and jealous. Therefore, developing patience is beneficial for this archetype. The second one is the helper. Helpers want to be loved and appreciated, and share their love and appreciation with others. Even though there cannot be enough solidarity in this world, helpers often use their love as currency to buy appreciation and affection, but sometimes also to purchase a sense of superiority and importance, and even power over other people. Thus, they could fall into the trap of manipulation. Helpers are generally caring, warm, friendly, and generous, but they can also be manipulative, possessive, dismissive of their own needs, and often act out of fear of being unloved. Therefore, developing true solidarity instead of transactional love is beneficial for this archetype. The third one is the achiever. Achievers want to be successful. How others see them is of utmost importance. They are prone to push themselves to always be the best and are allergic to failure. Even if their behavior goes at the expense of other people, they run the risk to become narcissists and frauds. Everything is allowed, as long as it prevents them to experience what they fear the most: worthlessness. Achievers are characterized by industriousness, confidence, direction, and high energy, but they can also be pretentious, narcissistic, superficial, and impatient. Therefore, developing truthfulness and authenticity is beneficial for this archetype. The fourth one is the individualist. Individualists want to be unique. They dread the idea of being seen as insignificant and ordinary. They're often artistic, and their compassion and emotional depth grant them the ability to empathize with others. However, deliberate separation from the herd often leads to difficulties with experiencing simple and mundane forms of happiness that, quote-unquote, normal people seem to experience so easily. Individualists are characterized by creativity, expressiveness, supportiveness, and warmth. But they can also be melancholic, stubborn, shy, and envious of other people's happiness. Therefore, developing equanimity in their emotional world is beneficial for this archetype. The fifth one is the observer. Observers want to acquire knowledge, in which they find understanding as well as safety. They crave independence and self-preservation, which also makes them distant, detached, and closed off from the world. This is related to their fear of being helpless and incapable of finding their own way. Thus, they put emphasis on being as self-reliant as possible and trust mainly their thoughts. Observers are characterized by objectivity, sensitivity, analytical skills, and conceptual thinking. But they can also be emotionally distant, cynical, greedy, unassertive, and intellectually arrogant. Therefore, the development of the emotional world is beneficial for this archetype. The sixth one is the loyalist. Loyalists want to be dutiful. Being part of something makes them feel safe, and they can be reliable participants within a group. The dark side of their behavior is that it stems from a place of fear. On the one hand, they seek guidance and want to belong somewhere and believe in something or someone to ease their anxiety. On the other hand, they are suspicious of authority. This makes them complacent in one situation and rebellious in another. Loyalists are generally caring, thoughtful, responsible, and of course loyal. But they can also be unpredictable, dominant, defensive, and paranoid. Therefore, the development of courage and trust in oneself is beneficial for this archetype. The seventh one is the enthusiast. Enthusiasts want to be fulfilled. They are commonly referred to as the Epicureans among the other personality types. Having fun, engaging in activities, and seeking happiness are the enthusiasts' main objectives. However, underneath the ongoing search for gratification hides a fear of being unfulfilled, because that would lead to a possibly unpleasant confrontation with themselves. Thus, they often impulsively jump from one pleasure to another to stay out of negative thoughts and emotions. Enthusiasts are characterized by spontaneity, a lively fantasy, curiosity, and the ability to oversee complex situations. But they can also be undisciplined, impulsive, manic, confused, and narcissistic. Therefore, coming to terms with the reality of suffering, as well as a more thoughtful approach to life, are beneficial for this archetype. The 8th one is the challenger. Challengers want to be strong and independent. Their lives revolve around strength, which means gaining strength as well as using it to become as self-sufficient as possible. This desire to be strong comes from a fear of being violated and controlled. Needless to say, challengers despise being dependent and feeling weak, even though they have a strong and sometimes aggressive demeanor. In relationships, they are often very caring, loyal, and generous. Challengers are characterized by protectiveness, high energy, confidence, authority, and directness. But it can also be rebellious, insensitive, vengeful, violent, and domineering. Therefore, learning the value of being vulnerable and the ability to let others lead are beneficial for this archetype. The 9th one is the peacemaker. Peacemakers want to be content. In general, they are nice people, and it's difficult to make them angry. They are accepting towards other people, considerate in their way of speaking, and dedicated to achieve peace among others as well as in themselves. The flip side is that peacemakers tend to walk away from conflict, avoid pain and suffering, and likely suppress their own feelings and needs. Thus, their niceness often goes at the expense of genuine expression, which could lead to self-diminishment. Peacemakers are characterized by patience, friendliness, diplomacy, and empathy, but they can also be unassertive, stubborn, evasive, and disengaged. Therefore, becoming more decisive and vigorous is beneficial for this archetype. If one wants to use the Enneagram for personal insight and development, the essential starting point is the identification of one's basic personality type. From this insight, it's possible to further explore one's personality and the interconnectedness with other archetypes. Even though a personality can be developed in different ways and is, therefore, a flexible entity, we are not able to change it completely. According to the Enneagram Institute, we cannot change our core personality archetype, as its formation has been decided before birth. I quote, "Everyone emerges from childhood with one of the 9 types dominating their personality, with inborn temperament and other prenatal factors being the main determinants of our type. This is one area where most of the major Enneagram authors agree. We are born with a dominant type. Subsequently, this inborn orientation largely determines the way in which we learn to adapt to our early childhood environment." End quote. We can, however, alter our personality into a healthy direction when we gain sufficient insight and self-awareness. Moreover, in an ideal scenario, we can cultivate positive characteristics of all 9 types in order to achieve a fully developed and individuated self. Aside from studying one's basic archetype's features, it's perhaps even more interesting to investigate the relationship between oneself and other archetypes. The structure of the Enneagram offers us several tools that identify how we relate to other personalities and how we manifest traits from other types. When we look at the placement of the nodes, we can see that some are closer to each other and others are not. This isn't a random thing. We can divide the 9 archetypes into 3 groups, also known as intelligence centers, which determine how we perceive information. The Enneagram distinguishes 3 centers: the head, the body, and the heart center, also called respectively the thinking, action, and feeling center. Someone in the head center approaches the world with logic and reason and sees it mainly through concepts and ideas. Someone in the body center is strongly engaged with the world and acts mainly based on intuition and instinct. And lastly, someone in the heart center relates to the world through a deep connection with feelings and emotions. As with the archetypes, each center isn't inherently good or bad, but they all have healthy and unhealthy characteristics, as the head, the body, and the heart can be used in constructive as well as destructive ways. When we look at the placement of the nodes on the circle, we see that every personality has 2 wings. For example, type 8 has 7 and 9 as wings, and type 1 has 9 and 2 as wings. Again, this isn't a random thing. Wing types are closely related to one's basic archetype. This means that one is likely to possess traits that actually belong to the wing archetypes. It depends on the individual to what degree one has traits of their wing types and which wing type is dominant. For example, one's basic personality type can be a 6 combined with a strong 5 and a weaker 7, or vice versa. When we look at the lines between the nodes, we discover that each archetype is connected to 2 other types aside from their wings. Every archetype has a healthy and unhealthy connection with types that they are connected to. Therefore, these connections are called lines of integration and lines of disintegration. The direction of integration represents personal growth and healthy self-development. The direction of disintegration represents how one acts when experiencing stress. When working with the Enneagram, it's essential to remember that people change constantly and in different directions. Even though a person is born as a certain archetype, he or she has the ability to develop traits of all archetypes. This change isn't necessarily progressive or linear. Healthy, well-developed traits can deteriorate, and unhealthy traits can be transformed into healthy ones. By self-neglect or unfavorable circumstances, one can regress into the realm of destructiveness. But through self-awareness and active engagement in self-development, one can become a well-rounded individual. The Enneagram has gained popularity among mental health professionals, but has been a target of criticism as well, as some people question its validity due to the lack of scientific basis. Others accuse the Enneagram of being too vague and open to interpretation. Nevertheless, it's safe to say that the Enneagram of personality is an ingenious system that has awakened the interests of mystics, philosophers, psychologists, and many others throughout the ages. For many, it has been a valuable tool for self-development, which has granted profound insights through a philosophical lens. There's much more to the Enneagram than the basics presented in this video.